It's time for the Daily Stand-Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. I was lucky enough to receive another email from my dear friend Mike Cohn. This week he talked about the Beatles. Now, I have a confession. It's probably not going to be very popular with many people. I really don't like the Beatles. I never have. I think maybe they have one good song out of their entire catalog. It's just one of those things where, call me, I don't know, maybe I'm in the wrong generation or whatnot, but they just didn't appeal to me. The music wasn't great. The artistry wasn't great. The people who are in the band weren't great. I have nothing good to say about them. But Mike goes on and he starts with, the Beatles made a mistake, so that means you can too. I'm like, okay. So it should be comfort to each of us to know that we'll probably never make a mistake as big as the one the Beatles made during this week in 1966. Okay. That was before my time. Following the critical and sales success of the prior year's Rubber Soul album, the Beatles released a new album called Yesterday and Today in June of 1966. The album was released in the US and Canada and contained songs that had been withheld from North American versions of other Beatles albums. Musically, it felt like a solid album featuring Drive My Car, Nowhere Man, We Can Work It Out, Day Tripper, and of course, Yesterday. Where the Beatles went wrong was in the choice of the album art. Oh boy, I think I know where this one's going. The cover photo shows all four Beatles wearing white butcher's frocks with decapitated baby dolls and pieces of raw meat in their laps. This photo is incredibly bad taste even to the less sensitive standards in 1966. I'm sharing this because on this day in 1966, the Beatles admitted their mistake and replaced the cover. I think the Beatles' experience with this botched album cover decision holds 4 lessons for us regarding Agile. All right, let's see if we can pull it in. First, it's important to acknowledge that when a team is moving quickly, team members will make some mistakes. Yesterday and Today was the Beatles' 12th album released in North America in only 4 years. Second, when you make a mistake, be willing to admit it. The Beatles did not try to blame their label for picking the cover. In fact, the band members insisted on the cover over the label's objection. The Beatles said the cover was meant to be a protest against the savagery of the Vietnam War. I've always been skeptical of that, as it seemed like an after-the-fact justification, but I appreciate that they owned up to their mistake. How about third? Correct mistakes as quickly and cost-effectively as possible. The Beatles corrected their mistake by recalling the albums and the pasting of a new cover on top of the original of every copy. A few savvy DJs and record stores did not return all the albums with the original cover. This created a lucrative collector's market for copies of Yesterday and Today with the original cover still intact. I've seen some for nearly $40,000. That's crazy. Why would someone pay $40,000 for an album with, I'm not even going to try to justify it. Finally, after correcting a mistake, put memory aside and move on. After the cover debacle of Yesterday and Today, the Beatles went on to make some of their greatest albums and hits, including Revolver, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, The White Album, and Abbey Road. Mistakes happen. I make them, you make them, the team makes them. The Beatles made mistakes. I would argue they made a lot of mistakes. They made a lot of albums. Let's acknowledge that mistakes will happen when moving quickly. Then, when we do make a mistake, let's own it, correct it, and move beyond it. It's quite possible, as it was for the Beatles, that your best work may follow your biggest mistake. And I think that's true. One of the things that I talk about, I have an entire keynote presentation that's labeled Failure is an Option. And in this presentation, we talk several times about the joy and benefits you can receive from failure if you just simply put your mind to a point where you're saying, okay, yeah, I've fallen down, but I'm going to get back up again. Or, maybe this wasn't as appealing to this audience. Maybe it'll be appealing to a different audience. And I think that sometimes when you pick up the pieces, that's when you learn the most about your product or service. I can tell you I've worked on many products and services where they felt like they identified the target audience quite well. And then when we spelled out who the audience was, they're like, oh, wait, I don't know any of those people. So it's just really, really interesting when you think about how to appeal. Also, I want to point out that the Beatles did something really interesting. They went political. With this being an election year, it's real easy for us to become political and to have viewpoints and to share our views. What I want to say is, while I appreciate that you have views and I appreciate that you have talking points and I appreciate that you want to share and educate me and all this good stuff, I think it's important that when we're doing Agile and we're trying to be friends, that we check those feelings and emotions at the door. I don't want to have somebody sitting here being critical of everything that I say or post or do, nor would I want to be critical of someone else who does these things. So I think it's time for us to hang up all the bad karma and get to the point where we're doing the right thing, because if we do, I think that's going to help us be best at what we do. That's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have a question or comment about things, feel free to reach out. Learn more at agiledad.com. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.